All right. Good Friday. It's afternoon out here on the East Coast. Still, I guess, afternoon on the West Coast too, right?
Early afternoon.
Yeah. Well, come on in. It is so good to be alive and so glad to see so many of you all coming on in. We will get the discussion started very shortly here. Today is Friday. It is August the 21st, 21 days into the eighth month of this year of 2020. Unbelievable of all the things that have happened. Let me just give you just a quick rundown. Again, thankful for Hope Health Systems, which helps to sponsor this particular Facebook Live session. And we have remained open throughout the pandemic. And please, if you are in need of direct mental care services, mental health services, please reach out to us. And as I always say, we'll do you some good. And but let me just add us a little bit of context of all that's happened in the month of August in relation to the pandemic, and then we're going to get into our topic. So 21 days since we've been in this month, and since then, over 22,000 people have died from the coronavirus. I keep a pretty good eye on the dashboard from the Johns Hopkins University. 22,000 people. That's telling me that over 1,000 people per day are dying from the coronavirus. That is just wow. It just makes me shake my head. It's sad, and wow, it just lets me know that we have to continue to be vigilant
Yeah.
as we fight against this virus. And even on my way home, found out that here in Maryland, there's the Bay Bridge that connects, I guess, the central part of Maryland, Annapolis, to the Eastern Shore. There have been four people this week who have attempted to jump off of the Bay Bridge.
Wow.
Four people this week. That is just sad, you know. And so, you know, I watch the news each morning, and I noticed that they've been blocking off the Bay Bridge for the last 2, 3 mornings, and I just found out why. That's because people have been up there wanting to hurt themselves. I'm mentioning all this because Hope Health Systems is here today to just provide guidance, provide some inspiration, encouragement. Not meaning to start on this somber note, but you know that's the time that we're in, and so we want to hear how to be able to do some self-reflection, some self-care, some inspiration, some encouragement. And so I am so excited today. And I asked the question, can we still be friends? Can,
Light.
can we still be friends? So what you talking about, Dr. Shepard? I mean, with all that has been occurring in this year of 2020, can we still be friends after the pandemic is over? Can we still be friends, even though you might be on one political aisle or on the other side of the political aisle than where I sit? We're in the midst of the Democratic and Republican conventions right now. Can we still be friends if you are one race and I'm of another race? Can you still be my friend and you're Caucasian and I'm black? Can we still be friends? So many different questions. So that is where we are headed today. You see, I'm talking with passion because I'm excited about what's going to happen. Looking forward to this live discussion we're going to have. I've got two great people here with me. One of them is a regular here and also an employee over at Hope Health Systems. And she's in her rightful spot on this month. And that is the Dr. Kimberly Gordon Achabe. And so just glad to have you once again, Dr. Gordon. And so she can introduce herself. Then she's going to introduce our special guest. And I'm so honored that she was able to take time out of her schedule to be with us today. So take it away, Dr. Gordon.
Thank you, Dr. Shepard, Jonathan. It is such a pleasure again to do this. You know, when I came up with this topic, I've been so excited since the beginning thoughts of it, just because I get to talk about something that really brings a lot of joy in my life, and that's friendships. And, you know, we started with a somber note, kind of discussing, what it's been like for people But I think for those people who have real solid friendships is what's getting us through this moment. So I'm glad that you kind of shared, how we can, as we talk, we can think about how we can, help people understand and build friendships. As you stated before, there's a lot of things that is preventing us sometimes from connecting. It can be ideologies about, race or religion or politics, or even whether or not you should wear a mask or not. I mean, we just have a lot of debates that's going on today. And I think it's making people frustrated and feeling like they have to take a side or they have to take a stand, and maybe not necessarily always kind of seeing the middle ground, or, how we have a diverse conversation around some really tough topics. With that being said, I am so excited just to be a part of this and to invite one of my best friends, Rupi, Dr. Rupi Ligay. And she is just a wonderful person, interested enough. We're both child psychiatrists. All of us actually are all child psychiatrists on this talk today. Dr. Rupi is an anti-racist psychiatrist. She is at UCLA, and she is well known for her research on diversity and inclusion, and including anti-racism in medicine. So I'm just really happy to have her as a friend and as a mentor. We actually started together with the American Psychiatric Association SAMHSA fellowship program. What was that, 2009, 2010, so long ago. And at that time, a lot of different things was happening in both of our lives. Rupi did some research, and then she went into her child fellowship, and now she's attending and child psychiatrist. So we've actually taken different roles in our career as mentor and as friends, and just kind of changes. But Rupi is just one of those people who, she's been to my home. We've just shared a lot of holidays together. And I call her a sister even, and a friend. So Rupi, I'll let you say something.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. I'm honored to join you both. And it's so funny, Kim, when you were introducing me as a friend and a mentor, that's exactly how I describe you, which I think really gets to this question of, can we still be friends? Everything about life in this country is incredibly segregated. So our neighborhoods, our lives, our realities, the decision to put on a mask or not put on a mask is so fueled by that segregation. And so these individual decisions that come up speak to much larger and deeper divisions in our lives. But it's our friendships that can help us bridge those realities, and not only bridge those realities, but really lead to substantive shifts in our lives that are transformative, meaningful, give us hope, and move us forward, as we confront these really staggering horrors and statistics, Dr. Shepard, that you started off mentioning. So I love that you said that I'm a mentor and a friend, because I feel the exact same way about you.
And you guys can see why she's such a mentor, right? Just wonderfully said, Rupi.
I was about to say, Dr. Gordon, you're going to let her introduce herself? I mean, you about to go down her whole... Man. So, but this is good. This is good. So we're going to jump on in, and please, I've already put it in the comment section. If you have any questions, any comments, please share. We'll be glad to at least attack and try to answer some of the questions that you ask. So let's just start out. Kim and Rupi, I know you all are friends, and so you all are, I believe you all are of different ethnicities. So how did this friendship even become, and how has it maintained through these particular turbulent times?
So maybe I'll start. Sometimes you wonder, how do you became friends with people? Like, what was the impetus? What was the first conversation? I actually don't remember Rupi and I first introduction. I mean, I don't know if it's important anymore, but I think, how I've learned to develop friendships, and this is even outside of Rupi, is I've always been interested in people that's different than I am. I think there's a lot of strength in knowing different people and understanding things from their perspective. So although Rupi and I share a whole bunch in common, I think it's been really helpful for me, particularly in times where I've struggled, to hear her perspective, especially around conversations around race. I mean, we've had just intimate conversations around internalized racism and what that feels like as an African-American woman and professional. Am I getting in my own way sometimes, which is hard to have a conversation about because it's so loaded and, in such in a way where people can misinterpret things. But I think when you get to know the heart of a person, you really understand a little bit more where they're coming from. Rupi and I had a conversation, what was it, last night or the night before, and we were sharing pictures of our childhood. And, I had our moms, right? And I showed her, 1982 circa, the wedding, picked photos. If you ever seen a 1982 wedding photos, it really kind of give you a sense of that time period. And then I showed her a picture. She showed a picture of herself as a 2 or 3 year old. And I was around 2 or 3 at the same time too. And we just kind of chuckled and laughed about the similarities. But then I remembered something about my childhood and having a cousin who was from, a biracial kind of couple. And how that was a difference for me. She was very fair skinned, long hair, with Indian looking, and people would, pick her as the favorite. And, but she was my sister. I loved her. But it was also that tension in relationships. And over the years, that relationship hasn't been as strong as it probably could have been over the years. But then I remember, oh, wow, Rupi reminds me so much of that person. But I think that, some kids grow up and they're around a lot of diversity, right? So they may go to a school where there's kids of all different backgrounds, races, religions, that sort of thing. I was privileged enough, not necessarily the diversity that I would hope for, like how the world looks, but I was fortunate enough to go to high school where it was predominantly white, right? Lo and behold, being in that environment sort of forced me to understand the perspective of Caucasian people. Higher SES, they had more than I could ever dream of at that age. But I think that experience was enriching, also very challenging. But I think that's a part of it. So for me, it just felt right that Rupi and I would be friends. But everybody's different in terms of how they pick their friendship. What about you, Rupi? How did we? Do you remember how?
Yeah, I liked you. I liked your presence. So we met professionally, and I admired your leadership. I admired your authenticity and your ability to wed your intellect to your heart and your soul in the way that you spoke and led. And this was the 2011 or so, and so certainly racism and anti-Blackness and white supremacy have always been there. Mm-hmm. The historical moment that we're in has shifted, and the ways in which we're dialoguing and talking about things is quite different. And then each of our own individual developments is different. So where I was then is quite different from where I am now. Mm-hmm. I liked you, and we connected. Mm-hmm. And then I remember reaching out to you to ask you for help with a case. I asked you for help with a case because at that point in my training and where I was with my own racial consciousness as a South Asian woman, who had grown up in a community where, on the one hand, I was taught many wonderful things and important values, but Indian communities are steeped in anti-Blackness related to colonization and colorism. And I had a child that I was working with clinically, and it was a young Black boy, and I felt like I could do more harm than good if I wasn't really informed by what I was doing. And I went to you for help. And I remember speaking to you for several hours in a way that felt embarrassing at times for me, because I felt like I should know what to do to take care of this child that I was charged with taking care of as a doctor. And you helped me. And so it started off with a professional consultation, and then it's evolved so much more over the past 10 years. That ability to bridge those divides and help one another learn. And let's be honest, you were taxing yourself by sharing that with me. But what it gave to me and where it's helped me land 10 years later is so important and transformative that it was incredibly impactful for me.
Absolutely. Wow. That's good. Y'all make me a little jealous. Yeah, no, but you know what, Rupi, you just said something that was very impactful to me, and that was in regards to that you actually liked her. And so, and now again, Kim is likable. I know. I can hear Kim right now. What does he mean by that? Kim, Kim is likable. But here's the thing I'm getting at is that we meet people who we like, and they may not look like us. And that happens as we are in grade school. I'm just thinking about those in kindergarten, even preschool. You go back, and you just learn to like certain people. You like their personalities, and it isn't until someone comes along and says, "Well, you shouldn't like that person." Why? Well, because they don't look like you, or they don't have what we have, or they live on this side of the street and we live on that side of the street. And so it's these differences that continue to be highlighted right now that really discourages a lot of people, including myself. So for you to say what you said really is impactful. So with that, I'm going to shift now to the next question. And that is in regards to the two pandemics that we are experiencing. For me, it really is four. All right. The four being the COVID-19 pandemic, the healthcare disparities, which has always existed, the police brutality against Blacks, and then the economic crisis. All those things are occurring this year simultaneously. And so, with all that said, what do you think will be the emotional impact? And this is for either one of you all. What would be the emotional impact of family, friends, and neighbors as a result of these pandemics ongoing and occurring simultaneously?
I think, for me, I'm sensing, particularly with, speaking to like friends and families and even some of my patients, of how disconnected they feel from, their family. I think particularly people are limited in their were limited in their resources prior to COVID, the pandemics, the four pandemics, and now even more so feeling disconnected because the places that they would gather to get that strength or to get that support is just not available to them. A lot of single mothers relied heavily on their teachers and the people in the school to provide their kids with positive affirmations. And we know that, some kids are not getting the positive affirmations that they need from school officials in light of, understanding more about racism. But in many instances, there are good people all across the world who are just filling in the gaps for kids. And that's not available anymore. The other thing that I'm hearing a lot about is spirituality being challenged, particularly with people who have lost loved ones during the pandemic, and just wondering, what all of this means. Am I going to be okay? I've been praying for a while and things are not getting better. I lost my job and, my friend gave me this place to rent out, but now she's giving me an eviction notice and lost that friendship because, she has to pay her bills, but I'm struggling and, she doesn't understand what I'm going through or he doesn't understand what I'm going through. So I think a lot of people are feeling disconnected and the emotional impact of that is honestly long lasting. Some relationships are not going to be the same after this pandemic. And, for people who have lost their spouses or, who've lost parents and, even kids, that's something that you live with for the rest of your life. So I think the political climate where we have these conversations about whether you wear a mask or not seems a bit ridiculous when you think about the outcomes for America, including the financial outcomes and economic disaster that we're dealing with. To know, in addition to the economic disaster we're dealing with mental health sequela and emotional burnout. Yeah.
I was thinking about, again, just how segregated these experiences are and how they fall along these fault lines of race and anti-Blackness in particular. Dr. Shepard, just thinking about what you were saying about police brutality, the economic toll, the health disparities in COVID-19, we know that the rates are so different based on how you present by virtue of the color of your skin. And so, with Dr. Gordon, what you were describing about what people experience, I was thinking about how I went to see a healthcare provider a couple weeks ago, And I think she would safely identify as being a white woman. And she kind of commented, like, I don't know anyone who has COVID. Like, I don't get what the big deal is. And it, by contrast, so many of my Black family members and friends have had multiple family members who are dying or who are sick. Within my own small family, thank heavens nobody has been. But what does that differing reality mean for each of us? And so I think, for those of us who are spared so much of that violence and anti-Blackness, what does that mean for our own collective humanity and sense of responsibility? And so I guess where I have not been on the receiving end of so much of that is, how do we get more of us to open up our eyes and really link together, so this is a shared struggle and shared suffering, so that we're collectively doing something about it, not so that it's so segregated that one person is saying, what's the big deal? Why aren't we at the beach? Why aren't we, I think about this quote, the banality of evil, to be kind of having dinners out at restaurants or being at the beach while people are dying and thinking about jumping off bridges. And so how are those of us who are in positions of privilege really thinking about what it means for us to be a part of that? Because your brother might not be on the receiving end of police brutality, but actually your brother is on the receiving end of police brutality, no matter who you are, because it's our shared experience together.
Right.
Wow. Absolutely. Wow. Well stated. We have to understand that we are our brother's keeper. That is something that the Bible talks about. And I'm not getting religious right now, but and others. There's even been different mentoring programs out there called My Brother's Keeper. And so when you're putting on that mask, let's use that for example, I'm looking out for you. And so we have to keep those type of ideas in mind and thoughts in mind. And I've heard some of that being stated even during the Democratic National Convention that I listened to this past week. So hopefully we're on that track, because that really leads me now to the next question. How do you bring up these issues around voting, protesting, COVID-19 social physical distancing, the Becky mask rules? And somebody may want to explain that. I know.
End up Karen, but Karen really.
Right. School openings, social networks, when there's such a polarized view on these topics. So, Rupa, you were just talking about how you were with that provider. So how do you bring these type of issues up? Because let me tell you, I was just in a meeting this past week and someone said something, and it took everything within my power not to just say what I really thought. Even though the person thought they were being more quote unquote meant well. No, that was offensive. It was offensive to me as a Black man.
Yes.
And so, how do we bring these type of subjects up? How do we deal with this, with such polarizing views on so many of these topics?
I think my best hope for that is to do it collectively. And so I think it's this daily debate and struggle, right? It should always be named and identified, but I can speak for myself and say that I don't do that. I don't name it and identify it and call it out every time. I think I would be on the floor not getting out of bed if I did that every day because of what would follow. And so to some extent, and this is, I think, a product of, and I'm not proud of this, I pick and choose what I stand up for. And I don't believe that's the right way to do it. I actually think this next generation that's coming up is calling out everything a lot more. And they have the numbers to do it, and they have the historical moment to do it. Kim and I know from being in, from our shared experiences, like training at the same time, we know what we're up against with the generational divides, with the racial divides that come up. I personally see a lot more hope with what's coming up with this next generation. And so when I have opportunities to teach or guide discussion, those are ones where I'm probably far more inclined to speak up and put my energy towards that. but I don't feel great about that. I feel like I should be speaking up about things on a regular basis, but to some extent, I'm always trying to gauge what my own level of safety is and my own level of well-being is regarding when I do speak up and when I try to strategize and I have not spoken up.
Yeah, I mean, for me, Dr. Shepherd, to answer your question, I've been thinking a lot about how conversations are happening and you wasn't expecting it to happen just because we're socially disconnected. And by that, I mean, we can't be face to face. Some of the conversations are happening by social media, it's disheartening sometimes when I open up my Facebook page or Twitter page and I see a friend or somebody who I considered a friend have a viewpoint that I didn't know that they had, and it's very shocking because you're offended and you want to quickly respond like, "How dare you?" What's driving these thoughts. So it goes back to what Rupi was stating before about a segregated society. Americans have always known that we live very segregated lives. I mean, we think of places like New York when we want to think about diversity, and maybe California, but in many parts of this country, it is such a segregated, kind of life. I drove 19 miles every day to go to a predominantly white high school, but where I live was predominantly Black, right? In order for me to get access to a good school, I had to travel 20 miles, sometimes, in really bad weather to get there. But now that we're all at home and we're just interacting with the people that we like, we know, we understand better, it's making us even more segregated. Imagine the CEO of a large company who would walk in every day and see the janitor cleaning up and know that he was there just 2 hours before, whatever time when he left, he was there. And when he got back the next morning, that janitor is still there working and then has to work on another job. That changes your concept of humanity and what's important and valuable. And you start to see people as human beings who are working hard just to make things work versus sitting at home, on your virtual computer, giving orders to people, but not recognizing how, people's lives are. And so, I almost feel to have a diverse conversation, we have to think about the other side of the conversation. For white people who happen to be privileged, the shame or, the disappointment they feel in what's happening in America, it's time for you to speak up and say, hey, I know I get to go into this great neighborhood and, my kids will have a summer vacation despite COVID and go to the beach. But, how many kids won't see a beach this year or, better yet, won't walk out of their house because their parents are terrified to, get them some sunlight. I mean, I'm having conversations with parents about the necessity of vitamin D, how that's going to lead to more depression and more mood instability if you're not getting out and getting fresh air. Now, for me, I can say for Rupi, she helped me a whole bunch because I was terrified, and I still am, of catching, COVID. And I shared this with Dr. Shepherd as well. And Rupi shared with me an app. An app was like something I had never heard about before. And I was like, what is this, Rupi? Because she sends me a lot of things, but this app is inspired by, professional women who just made it their mission to get women to walk, Black women to walk, and just, get some fresh air and get some exercise. I have shared that with over, 50 African-American women who are sharing it with more people, right? I don't think I would have even bothered to know about that if it wasn't for Rupi. But I think some people don't have those type of friendships. They don't have that type of relationship with people, and they don't know what they're missing, So I was looking at this quote about friendships, and it said, I don't need a friend who changes when I change and who nods when I nod. My shadow does that better, right? Some of us have friends or just shadows of ourselves, right? And we don't have friends who just reminds us of another perspective. So it goes back to that question, like, are we going to remain a segregated society where our views are the only views that matter? Or are we going to diversify our conversations and also our friendships, and that's a decision. That's a conscious decision. It's not something that happens without effort.
So how do you divert or diversify your friendship if you're just stuck in an area where everybody looks like you?
That's a good question. You leave that area. It's simple. It's not, it's not rocket science. If you're in the library,
Well, everybody can't leave that area because they are, blocked in. Certain urban centers like Baltimore. Let's just say, for instance, Baltimore is a city that is transportationally challenged. I'll say that. And so even the governor was supposed to allow a subway line to go through some of the black neighborhoods, shut it all the way down because he didn't want that to happen. Now, again, he's going to say the money wasn't there, but we know there was other reasons behind that. So help me out. Help me out. How do we diversify that? So I know you said leave, but speak to that person who can't leave.
Well, I think I would say the responsibility is differentially allotted. To sort of expect someone whose life is assaulted by redlining and residential segregation to up and leave and connect to more privileged folks, it makes no sense whatsoever. I mean, I can sort of speak for myself, and I don't say this in a sanctimonious way at all. Like, I am a completely, flawed work in process, but those of us who exercise privilege and benefit from white supremacy have all the options in the world to move ourselves around, to engage people, to move our bodies, to move our conversations, to seek our friendships. There's so much freedom and privilege in that. And on top of that, there's so much joy on the other side of doing it. So I think that responsibility is not equally allotted at all. And there's a majority of us who have a great deal of privilege and power, who have this tremendous and we have this imperative right now to get to work on this. And there's so much joy on the other side of it, never mind everything else. But yeah, we've got a lot of work to do.
Wow.
Yeah, I think my comment to that was, and I'm glad Ruby went first, but when I was growing up, I was in a very segregated environment, but because of my race, I had to learn and understand and appreciate other people's perspective. So as I was looking at Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, I was also looking at Saved by the Bell, right? Where in some homes, they just look at Saved by the Bell, they don't look at Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I don't necessarily think you always have to leave your house, to explore other people's perspectives. I mean, the media does sometimes in the stereotypical way, in a typecast type of way, explore different things. But, there are books to read, there are movies to watch, even with the places that you choose to worship can change. I, for one, am a non-denominational Christian, but I go to non-denominational churches and I love Black music. If anybody knows me, I'm a gospel singer at heart, right? But, going to Black church kind of limits my exposure to a diverse group of people. And so I have self-elected to go to churches that are more diverse. So I'm around Africans and Indians and South Asians and, I'm just around diversity and Caucasians. And, even some of the discussions and how I, explore the conversations of race and sexuality has been different because of where I choose to worship. So I do think, it's a conscious effort that you make, but it doesn't happen, in 1 day, 2 days. We're in this for the long haul. This is going to be something that we all have to consciously think about. And I do think if you ever meet a friend, that's the best lesson you can learn in life. Of all the lessons I've learned, friendships, and how to maintain friendships has been the biggest and the most valuable one, right? And some friends are not meant to be there forever. Sometimes we question, some people are shy about making friends because they say, well, I'm going to, make this friend and then they're not going to be there. And then I'm going to be so alone. The one thing about making friendships is that it gives you the opportunity and it teaches you how to make more friendships. So in that perspective, you're never alone.
I'm gonna just highlight this one comment right here because I want to stay there because you are saying some good things, but I can really hear now where people are wrestling because we live this. All right, We live this every day. We make a decision to integrate ourselves. I have to make that decision every day. And let me tell you, some people have made the decision of gotten burned, and have gotten burned badly. And so, that's why I'm pressing you, because we want to be able to provide healing. Today is not a day just to talk about the niceties and stuff like that, because those days are over, truthfully.
Yeah.
I need I need for you all to speak directly to those persons, and then I am going to showcase this comment. But we got to speak directly to those people who have tried. They have tried to work with their Caucasian counterparts, and their Caucasian counterparts continue to push them off to the side, continue to say stuff to them that devalues their experiences. And so now you're telling me, Dr. Gordon, Dr. Lay, I may not say your last name that's right. So hopefully I'm close to it. So now you're telling me I got to not be friends with these people after they done shot me down, called me out of my name, all the help me out here. Help out that person who's struggling right there.
So I'll be clear, I'm not promoting toxic relationships. I think that there are situations where it's just toxic to be around, particularly in the workplace, where it's toxic. And I've actually encouraged people to diversify, your work experience, and also push that organization. Like, don't leave the organization with discrimination without reporting. Right? I think it's really important that we report. There are ways to report discrimination in the workplace and bad conduct from people. So I encourage people to do so. But I do think that there are some people who engage in microaggressions or engage in stereotypical or biased thinking who can be remedied, who with a little bit of, I would call it a little sophistication, a little bit of charm or grace, can, become better people, and you can become better also from getting to know them. Not everybody who engage in bigotry are bad people. They're just ignorant, right? And so sometimes we think of ignorance as a flaw that is lasting and you can't change. But, I'm in the psychiatry field, and I understand that people are capable of change and motivated to change. So I actually practice motivational interviewing with people who annoy me, including I'm dealing with situations in my own neighborhood where I'm like, okay, finally we have a vice president candidate who is a woman, which is a pretty big deal, right? Pretty big deal. And we have, these debates of whether or not Kamala Harris is this, good candidate, and conversations that's very sexist in nature, about her. And, people like to talk about those things because it's kind of fun to talk about. But then I check them, where is this coming from? What's driving, these negative comments about a person that you clearly do not know, nor why? How is that a good thing? So I think, I went on a tangent a little bit because I was thinking about Kamala Harris, but I think, we don't want to promote toxic relationships. We want to promote growth, right? And sometimes the growth is speaking up for yourself and not like internalizing what people say and saying, hey, that's not cool. And like Rupi said before, young people are doing that. Like, young people are not scared in the least to challenge people and question. And I think that we grew up in a generation where we kind of just dealt with, our parents taught us to deal with things that was dealt with, and we didn't talk about it. To survive, right? So I'm sick of surviving. It hasn't done me a bit of good to just survive, but other people may not feel the way. They may, think, hey, I don't want to lose out on, the things that I have right now. So I'll just keep fighting. Hopefully this stuff will pass. It won't pass. I mean, 1969, what's happening today was happening in 1969. But I think it's actually worse today because people were expecting more from the people that they know. So for me, I don't know if I have to answer, Dr. Shepard, like how you get over someone hurting you in that kind of way. I think that we're strong enough and we're resilient enough to get past it, though. Like, I will never get over being called hostile in the workplace, and that's happened to me. Sitting in a boardroom with a bunch of white people and someone come out and call me hostile. And I'm like, what? You know, I will never get over that. But I think I can move past that and grow from that and share my experiences with other people so that they can be stronger because of what I've been through. And that's what we teach people who have experienced trauma. Like, you know, it's not always about getting over uh, necessarily abuse, but overcoming it and surviving it, right?
I think also being anchored in supportive structures. So we all have multiple different communities. I think many of us confront some of our most caustic and hostile interactions at work. So what communities do we have around us outside of work? So I know for me, I'm on a chat group of friends that one of my closest friends put me together. I mean, I haven't met most of these people. We all got together over the past few months, and we've done a book club together, and we've done group chats together, and I think we had a dance party at one point. And it's just a community that's evolved virtually, but that is deeply felt. And I'll say, I think most of them would safely say that they're Black women by and large. So when there are situations that come up at work related to racism and anti-Blackness, say from an older white male, I have a community that I'm rooted in that I can go to talk about it. Or when caustic and hostile interactions come up in other domains of my life, I can call Kim and talk and cry to her about it so that I have the energy and reserve to work on it and find strength and find light in less supportive settings as well. But I think to sort of have an expectation that people who've been put through so much of this nastiness and violence keep on seeking connection with people who are directing it against them is not something I would encourage. I think people have to be anchored and rooted in life, love, and support so they can keep on moving forward as they challenge themselves as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And so that even helps to breed light and bring light to why we have certain riots and why certain people are so angry. You know, again, I don't advocate for any type of violence or a rioting, but you have to understand the anger that has been stewing there for centuries, truthfully. You know, since we've gotten here and was brought here not on our own as Black people. So there's just an anger that just rests, and we have to be able to know how to deal with that anger and know how to be able to manage that anger appropriately. So I hear you all. You all have mentioned the Democratic Vice President candidate Kamala Harris. And so we're so happy that she has been nominated through the Democratic Party. But this week she has suffered attacks. She's suffered attacks through Rush Limbaugh. She has suffered attacks even through Amazon. I don't know if you all saw those shirts.
I saw them today.
Yeah. I mean, come on now. So how do we hold those entities accountable? I hear what we're talking, and we doing this kumbaya stuff, and let's figure out how we can work together. But somebody has to be held accountable for that. So give me some ideas. How did that affect you? Let me just say that because I don't want to speak for you. But then, how do we hold those entities accountable when such derogatory things are occurring in this day and age?
Well, I mean, I think for the T-shirt that I saw, Joe the Ho, I mean, it's just awful, and it has like red, white, and blue colors on it. You know, when is it okay to call a woman a hoe? Right? It's just really, and it to come from like the top leaders, it juxtaposed with top leaders in our country is really a saddening. It's a crisis, really, because I never thought that politics would be so divisive and so hurtful to people who already feel marginalized. I read a wonderful article, and I don't know a lot about South Asian culture, even though I've been talking to Ruby over the years. But I read a wonderful article about Kamala Harris' background, even how to pronounce her name, which a lot of people pronounce wrong. But about her background and her mom is a South Indian who comes from an area where the people are considered predominantly Black in the sense of what Black Indian is. Like the colorism is actually even in that society, you know. So for her intergenerational trauma to have a mother who was sort of looked down upon, even though I think her father was a professional, but to be looked down upon because of the color of your skin, and then to also have someone to use derogatory language to describe you as a woman, it's just, I just can't imagine what she's going through right now. But how do we challenge that? I mean, I believe someone with the Amazon thing immediately saw that and started writing and writing and writing and sending, you know, soliciting other people to sign a petition to have Amazon, you know, take down that. And they did. They took it down. You know, I think that's what you do. You don't wait for someone else to act. You be the one to act if you can. And if you feel like you don't have the strength to act because maybe you don't feel safe enough to do it, you get on the phone and you talk to people who may feel a little bit stronger than you to do it. I think that's what you do. You know, as a leader for the American Psychiatric Association for many years, I have personally witnessed the advocacy efforts of psychiatrists who understand what it feels like to be from a historically marginalized group, minoritized group, so to speak, and how those struggles are very real. You know, there are a lot of apologies going out about medicine and how medicine has been implicit and complicit, you know, in you know, promoting racist, you know, ideologies in the profession. And so I think it's those people who put themselves on the line sometimes who is making a difference. But I would argue that if more people would speak up, then people who are always the ones that speak up wouldn't feel so burned out, right? Rupi and I have been doing this for 10 years. I mean, our conversations about racism did not start, you know, with the pandemic. We have done many, many lectures over the courses of, you know, 10 years about, you know, diversity and, you know, that sort of thing. And so I don't expect myself at this point to be at the forefront of the conversation. I'm giving room for people who haven't had that opportunity to speak about it. And, you know, and also kind of encouraging us to fight, you know, fight the good fight. Because it's a good fight. And ultimately, we're going to win, right? That's the one thing about all of this that gives me hope and makes me feel inspired, is that ultimately we're going to win. Evil will not succeed, you know? And I'm not talking about a political party. I'm talking about just hateful, hurtful things that just can't succeed. That's not who we are, right? So the kumbaya is real. I mean, this America that we're seeing right now that's being played out, I don't think that's who we are, you know? I think it's a few people who want to maintain power, and they're struggling. And speaking for like migrational history, if we think about this country, this is a country of immigrants. And if you think about the people who are promoting hate and white supremacy and that ideology, it's coming from people who were marginalized from their own countries of origin, white people, Irish, right? Who came here hoping for the American dream and hope and was marginalized. And then they were told that, you know, those Black people and those Indian people and those Asian people are getting in your way. And that's why you can't get ahead, right? So we have these conversations that need to be had about poor white people who are hoping that one president can change that condition, when we all know that the power is in a few people who want to maintain that power, and they're using white racism and white supremacy to do it, right? So those people who are poor and struggling are very similar. They have the similar mental health issues, it's all the same. So I think that kind of gives me hope too. Once we understand that we're more alike than we're different, hopefully that will change the narrative. And I do believe that this generation is going to do it.
Any comments there, Rupi?
I think the comments that were directed towards Senator Harris, it's a public health concern. And we know that discrimination, behavior of this kind, this is not joking. It's not just political. Like, there are very real health considerations in place. And I'm thinking back to when the National Academy of Medicine issued a statement about family separation at the border, when that was unfolding several years ago. So health organizations have had moments where they've chosen to step up and condemn certain things and speak out against them. I mean, all of the major health organizations spoke up and about that. More of the biomedical journals are starting to speak up about racism. Hopefully they'll start to do the same with white supremacy. But these are public health issues. These are things that healthcare providers need to be talking about and thinking about, and that organizations with power need to be uniformly condemning, whether it's taking products off Amazon or issuing a statement or doing something that condemns it. And children need to be learning about this and why it's wrong. I mean, I think part of what's so delusional about this is these things will happen. And what are we teaching young people about this and what it means for health, well-being, and day-to-day functioning?
Absolutely. Yeah, I echo that. And I believe you when you say that, because when I look at this case in point, last week, the Department of Justice wanted to come against Princeton University. No, it was a Yale. It was either Yale or Princeton.
Yale, I think.
Yeah, it was Yale, saying that they were using reverse discrimination. One of the things that I saw, and this speaks to both of you all's points, is that the Association of American Medical College, the AAMC, they wrote a statement against that particular DOJ charge to state, look, okay, you have not taken into account, clearly you have not taken into account the suffering, and also the suffering of Blacks, but also, I've been reading more about the report that William Flexner wrote back in 1910, and it was through his report and through that survey that closed down 5 out of the 7 medical college that were graduating Black students, and that's just, phenomenal. I had not heard about this report until this year, you all, as I continue to do my reading and research and study. I've just been reading just so much this year.
Yeah.
And so that really blew my mind. So how is it that you have a Department of Justice that is coming after a university that's trying to bring up diversity, trying to make things, and I hate to use the word equal because it's never going to be equal, but show some type of equity, and making sure. And there's a difference between equal and equity. Never forget that. So that we can allow those who have already had a leg up, the people whose legs have always been down, at least they stand on something, to be able to fight and be able to demonstrate. Because it's been shown over and over again that when, at least in healthcare, that people respond better when they see people who look like them in those roles of authority. Now, you don't have to be a person who looks like them in order to be able to care for somebody, but it just helps. And not just helps, it also eliminates a lot of those discrepancies that are seen. And what I mean by that, you have a white physician who will look at a Black person and think that they have higher pain tolerance. Mm-hmm. Whereas the white patient, I'll make sure that their pain is controlled. No, same person, So, and those type of things are existing. Those things are going on even right now. So I just wanted to say we have to fight. It's not enough just to put out a release statement that you're against racism. That means nothing to me. All it is that you try to join in the bandwagon of being trendy. And I'll never forget, one of the things I talked about back in June is, are you trendy? Or are you transformational? I refuse to be trendy. It's time to be transformational. And so I hear you, and I'm pushing right now. That's why I'm talking so much, because I normally talk this much without moderating. But I'm talking this much because we've got to hold these corporations accountable. We've got to have more people who look like you and myself, yourself, Rupi and Kim, in places of power, CEOs, CFOs, people who are making the decisions, not just in a diversity and inclusion officer,
Right.
Yeah, why can't we be the medical director of APA? All right, I will step on our toes.
And tokenism anymore. I just think that previous, we talk about affirmative. I had a talk with a bunch of, residents, and I was talking about racism and the conversation of reverse discrimination came up. And, one of the, students wanted to challenge me about, that reverse racism exists. And I was like, for me, it really doesn't matter whether you believe racism or exists or reverse racism exists. What really matters to me at the end of the day is if you're anti-racist, if you are seeing things in your workplace or seeing things in your communities and you're speaking up against it because you know something about that doesn't feel right. It's anymore about whether you're racist or not. Just kind of it feels, and in the same way, I don't want to be hired just because I'm a diversity hire. I feel like I've done that in academics where, I was, I taught our culture classes and anything about diversity. I was the leader and it felt great because people were hearing me. But it also felt very draining because, you knew that wasn't what was ideal or what people considered academic or clinical. So I think that we have to shift the narrative. So I spend my time, when I do teach, I spend my time speaking mostly to predominantly white people. Which some people may challenge me and say, hey, why are you doing that? But I'm doing that because some people don't want to do it, right? And I feel like because of my experience being in a segregated world, I kind of know how they think, so it helps to understand how people think to be able to have that conversation. I don't think, me, myself, or you, or anybody on this call have all the answers, right? I do think these answers are going to come from many, many different people. And some of those people are not going to even be United States citizens. They're going to be coming from other countries with different perspectives on how things should be. The question about whether or not we're trying to become socialists and, capitalism and all those fancy words that are thrown out there that most common people don't even understand or know the research of. The Black Lives Matter, women being accused of being Marxist, just that type of thing is just language that's used to divide. So I think, I'm more interested in people having a conversation that brings us together, and whatever that looks like. And I'm okay to have a few people who just don't get it at this point. Somebody asked me recently, will there be casualties, right? Will there, like when we ask the question, can we still be friends? The reality is some of us are not going to be friends. Some of us are just not going to, mesh. And I'm okay with that. There was a time in my life where I was not okay with losing people, but I think I am okay with that today, and I think that's why I thought that question would be important to ask. Can we still be friends? If you are posting racist comments on my Facebook page, bye Felicia, if you are Becky with the long hair or Karen who will not go into the grocery store with a mask, bye Karen, I don't, I'm not interested in being your friend anymore. And I think for me, that has been pretty rewarding because now people come back like, why did you why did you unfriend me? But that's how people change, by understanding that there is a consequence for bad behavior, right? Mm-hmm. And you see the outrageous behavior that happens when some people are challenged, which I think is hilarious. Actually, of all the things that's happened with COVID, that is probably the funniest thing to see, people act crazy and then know that it's just challenging temperamental, temper tantrums that 2-year-olds have, right? Some of us are engaging in 2-year-olds behavior, right? And that is funny and sad. It's entertainment in some ways, but I think the entertainment can be used as lessons. So even in the lectures that I give, I show pictures of that and say, well, how would you manage a patient who comes in with this type of thought process? And you note that person has interpersonal issues and other aspects of their life. How can this be a teaching moment or an opportunity for some growth within the individual? And it's been fun.
All right.
I think Dr. Shepard wants us to fix today. He's like, tell me what to do. Like, this fun. And I love it.
No. I'm just trying to push you, Kim. That's all. You finally came on through. That's all. That's what I was trying to do. I was trying to push you to come on. I want you to tell me what you really think. And so now thank you.
What do you think, Ruby? I mean, we have really a wonderful conversation. I mean, so I don't know. I don't want to share Rupees because I mean some things are kind of sensitive, but you know, Ruby is a really wonderful person, and as you heard from her, she has self-selected to be around people who wouldn't think that would be her friends, right? You wouldn't think that this South Asian woman who could be assimilate maybe better than myself would even self-select to be best friends or friends with African American women on a regular basis, where we having conversations like that. But that's also challenged in a way. I have seen Rupi as a friend take a backseat and say, well, because of my life experience and privilege, I don't want to, I don't want to step on anybody's toes or, say the wrong thing. And I say, girl, please, if somebody is black and they're acting, up, you got to say bye, Felicia, right? So I'm not just talking about, the black perspective. I'm saying, if we have people who are engaged in bad behavior or internalized racism, even if that's something that is hard to talk about, I think is important for us to say. For the APA, for instance, they have this task force that's about racism. How do we dismantle racism in the American Psychiatric Association? I guarantee you they're having some internal conflicts right now around people who have good intentions, who want to, move the conversation forward, but haven't even had the opportunity to reflect and do some introspection on their own stances about things, right? It's good enough to that old status quo, what my grandmother used to call Uncle Tom. That ain't gonna work today, We don't need an Uncle Tom. We need somebody who is ready to challenge people's, biases. And if you're not willing to challenge those biases, then you need to take a back seat and let somebody who feels a little bit more comfortable do that. And I've seen, I think I talked about my friend before, Dr. Harrison, who's the president of the Black Caucus, who was on a previous talk. I've seen all the wonderful work that she's doing with a collaborative kind of collective approach that Rupi mentioned. This is a collective effort. This is not a one-man shop. I can't write a book about my experiences that wouldn't be similar to somebody else who wrote another book, right? Because the stories are really the same. It's just happening to me individually, but it's actually more like happening collectively. And that's why we call it institutional and systemic racism and not, and we can talk about, the conversation of having had just 4 years ago an opportunity to have a woman president, right? We had that opportunity. We had that opportunity to change the narrative and have somebody else. But many women, because of the oppression that they've had in their own life and how they see themselves, just could not envision a woman being the president of the United States. When are we going to get past that? What are we teaching our young women if we don't explore that women can be more than just a sexual object, right? Why are we objectifying ourselves in that way? Like you said, a woman can be the president of the United States or the CEO of the United States, right? So I'm encouraging myself to put myself out there to be the CEO versus, the workhorse, driving the engine. So you better watch out, Dr. Shepard. I may be the CEO one day.
That's all right. That's all right. I ain't scared.
And I didn't say this, but Dr. Shepard and I are really good friends as well. I mean, so we've been talking about friendships, and I've been focusing on Rupi. But when I had my struggle in a previous job, it was Dr. Shepard who I leaned on, and sometimes you have friends that you have to lean on, but now it's just a wall that you just kind of know is there. I don't have to lean on Dr. Shepard anymore, but I know that wall is there, and if I have a concern or something's going up, he's gonna, speak up. And we've had some conversations where it's been like, come on, Kim, I need you to think about it this differently, and it's fun and it's really rewarding, right? So thank you, Dr. Shepard, too, for being such a fan.
No problem. You see, that's how she got me to be quiet, Rupi.
I told you how to do it.
That's how she. All right, we're gonna wrap it up here. We've been talking over an hour. It's time to bring this session to a close today. So again, I have enjoyed this. Rupi, I know, is there any parting comments? Again, it was a pleasure to have you. We'll look forward to possibly having you again. I want to hear more about some of the things that you have, I guess, written about, talked about as being an anti-racist physician. And so that title alone is speaks volumes. It's very impactful and powerful. So any parting words before we get out of here? Anything you just want to say to kind of bring this to a conclusion?
I love my job.
Mm-hmm.
Every day, the children and families I get to work with, I mess up every day with what I do. I try to do better the same day or the next day, but I'm so grateful that I get to be a child psychiatrist working with children and families today, and that I get to try to do something with that. Yeah, it just fills me with joy on the same days that I feel a lot of heartache and horror.
Sure. And you know what? And that's good. Thank you for even reminding us of that, because even in this pandemic, we cannot lose our purpose. We can't lose our purpose, and we cannot lose our passion. And for so many people, the purpose is still there, but the passion has been diluted because of the circumstances around us. And so thank you for saying that, because hopefully that will reignite someone's purpose, reignite someone's passion to continue. Let me tell you, even with this show, it has been 5 months straight consecutively. I have not missed a Friday yet. And I tell you, it has been something moving forward. And it's only because of purpose, understanding the purpose and understanding the passion. It's not about trying to get up on social media and have my face on, but I understand, and it actually has been proven through research study that people will believe what they see on social media before they will what they read in an article or in a scientific journal. That is scary, and I'm probably going to have to post about that this weekend. But yeah, there is the proof that people will believe what they see and read on a Facebook post before they will believe what they read in JAMA. All right, now again, that may be kind of extreme, but that's where we are, and so that's where we have to make sure that on these different platforms, we're putting this information out. We're saying what needs to be said. And so I really appreciate today's discussion. Can we still be friends? Even after an hour and 7 minutes? Yes, we can still be friends. I have gained a new friend here this evening, Rupi. And so again, I appreciate you for being. Thank you, Dr. Gordon.
Thank you again, Dr. Shepard. It's been wonderful.
No problem. Again, wonderful conversation. Look us up if you're in need of direct mental health care out here on the East Coast. Hope Health Systems, 410-265-8737, or just look us up, Google us, and Hope Health Systems, and we'll do you some good. And our doors are still open for anyone out there who is in need of help. All right, until we see you again next Friday. Thank you all. Please stay safe. Please wear your mask. Please wash your hands. All right. And we'll see you all next time. All right. Take care.
We're in together.